Hi, hello guys. This is Precious again. So in today's training, we will be talking about Git and GitHub, but in a special way. Previously, you must have watched my other videos on Git and GitHub. Why the commands we will be using are not different, but we will be doing this differently because we will be using the token from our dashboard. So the first thing you need to do before you even create a repository is to click on settings. So we are trying to create a token now that we will use in connecting to our accounts from our computer straight up. So click on settings, and when you are in settings, you scroll down and you click on developer settings. And now that you are in developer settings, you click the one at the bottom called personal access tokens. Okay, so as you can see, I have one token already, and if you're watching this video, you would know what this token is for. So for the purpose of this video, I'm going to create a new token. Alright, so I'll click on generate new token, and it's going to ask you for your password so you can confirm. Now we can call this anything. I'm going to call this token, I'll call it Git training, because that's what we're trying to do here. Then you would determine the number of days you want it to be alive for. Since this token is just for the purpose of this training, I'm going to use 7 days. So after 7 days, it should expire. Then you have to click on some of these checkboxes. So the first one is you click on repo. You can click on admin if you want. And also, I like to click on delete repo. So take note of the three. The first one is repo. You click on everything, admin and delete repo. Then you can generate the token. And now we've generated this token. It is telling us now that we have to copy this token because we may not be able to see it or use it anymore. So you only see it once. So you click on this icon to copy your token, then you can keep it somewhere. So I will just keep mine on this online notepad application. So this is my token, all right? Now that I have my token, the next thing for us is to create a folder on our computer. So personally, I've done that already. I've created a folder called Git training in my downloads folder, but you see nothing is inside. We are going to create all the files inside here using command line. So you see it's an empty folder, and now that you have this empty folder on your computer, the next step for you is to go back to your browser, and we have to create a repository. So the idea is we are trying to move everything we do here offline. We want it to be going straight to the online repository. That is just the idea of Git and GitHub. So the idea is anything we create here, any changes we make here on the local computer should be sent to the online repository. So click on this place to create a new repository. So I've done that, and I'm also going to call this Git training. All right, you can decide to give it a description if you want. This is a Git and GitHub training. You can leave it as public. We are going to add the README file using command line, so you can ignore it. We are also going to add the git ignore file using command line, so you can ignore it. So the only thing you need to do here is add the name and the description and leave it as public so that the whole world can see it. But if you want to create a repository that the whole world cannot see, instead for people to be able to see it, you have to invite them. You use private, but this one I want it public for everybody to see. So now you create repository. Now our repository has been created, okay, but we don't need to use any of this command here. Instead, we can connect straight from our local computer we can connect from our local computer and connect this folder to this online folder. So all you need to do is just to click on this or click on copy, just to copy this link. Okay, so you click here to copy this link, then you go back to your local folder, and I'm going to use Git bash for this training. You can use command line, you can use command prompts or Windows PowerShell, or you can use terminal or Ubuntu or Cygwin, but I'm going to use Git bash. So I'll say Git bash because I'm in the folder already. Git bash will open inside of this folder. And there you have it. Git bash is in the folder already, as you can see, Git training. So now that we are in the folder, the next thing for us to do is to use our token, this token that we copied from here, to log in directly. So how are we going to do that? Remember, I've also copied this link from here. So I have the token here and I'm going to put the link here. So I'm going to drop the link. The link is for this repository that we created. This is the repository that we want to send all the local files here. We want to send them to this repository. So now that we have the link to the repository, the next thing you need to do is to put in the token, or it's called personal access token. So I've copied it, or I've cut it. So let me copy it. Okay, then you put it just before the G in GitHub. All right, you put what's it called, you put an heart symbol, this symbol before the G, then before the heart symbol you paste your token. Okay, so I've pasted my token. As you can see, my token has been pasted, so I'm ready to go. Now the next thing you need to do is to go back to your Git bash and use this new command. So git clone is going to clone what you have on your repository to your local computer, and it's going to connect both of them. So now we will drop the new link we've created. So take notes, this link, oh sorry guys, I'm going to delete that, sorry. So this link that we created contains our access token, this guy, this one, okay, then it has our username, this is my username, and the repository that we want to connect to. So if I press enter, you will see what would happen now. So enter, and now cloning into Git training, it has been cloned, but now it's telling us that you appear to have cloned an empty repository. There is no problem with that. We want it to be empty actually. All right, so we can go back to our browser to confirm. So if I reopen this Git training, it's still showing this because there are no files there yet. Okay, so now we can begin. And the very first thing we will need to do is, let's create a README file. A README file is important because it helps you to give information about your project or your program, telling people how to use it or what they need to do, talking about versions and updates. So to create a file, remember we are inside the Git training folder. So if I do print working directory, you can see that we are inside the Git training folder where we want to do the work. So I'm going to clear. So let's create a README file. To create a file, you say touch readme.md. So the file has been created. If I use LX, you can see we have README there now. So I'm going to clear. And now that we have README created already, so I'm going to create a README file which has been created already, like we did before, LX. So clear. So we have the readme.md already. Now we need to write into it. So I'm just going to write something simple into it, saying, so say echo my first readme file. So we are writing into readme. So let's see if it is written properly. So yes, we have our file, or we have a new file in our folder. And if we check the folder, let's confirm that. As you can see, we have the README file right there. Okay, you can see it now, it has been created. And the repository that we cloned is also there too. Okay, so this is the one we cloned, and this is the README file we created. So let's go back to Git Bash. So you can see I've not done anything in this folder. Everything will be done from command line. Now, the next thing for us is, let's update our identity before we proceed so that Git knows who is working. So the first thing I will do is I'm going to set my my username or my name using the global config. So I'll say git config global user.name. My name has space in between, so that's why I'm using the apostrophe. Then enter. That has been set. Then also, instead of typing, just use up. So I want to change it now to user email. I want to set my email too. So email, and I'm going to hide this email from being shown. So the point is, just type your email there. Then you press enter. Okay. .com, enter. So now we've been able to set a global username and a global email. Okay, so now it's time for us to proceed. Remember, our repository online still has nothing. We have a new README file here, but it's not on our repository yet. So now we can ensure that both of them are synchronized, and we do all that also from the Git Bash or the command line. So clear. So the first thing you need to note is, when you want to add a file to staging, you use git add. But before we get to git add, let's check the status of our folder. You use git status to see what is happening in your folder. So git status, and as you can see, I wanted you to see this. Git status is not a repository yet. And why is that? Because we've not used git add here. So to make this a repository, we have to use git add. Which is fatal. So what this is telling you now is that we need to go into the repository. Okay, so look at the difference. The reason why this folder is not a repository is because it does not have this git folder. To make it a repository, all you need to do is to use a command called git init. But I'm not going to do that on the git training, the main folder, because there is no point. Okay, so if you do git init and you press enter, it's going to create these files, this folder, this .git folder in this place. But since I don't want to do that, I'm not going to do that now, but you can try it on your own. Okay, or let's just do it. So I'm going to put git init, and as you can see, we have the new git folder here. We have it inside the other git training, and we have it on the main one. But since we are not doing anything here, I'm just going to I would leave it for the time being. So we have to go into the main folder that we want to work with, and we do that by saying cd git training. So now that we are inside of the folder, now we've done git init for the other folder, it's time for us to commit our changes. The first thing you need to do is git add, or we could let's use git status to see the status of this folder first. As you can see, there is nothing yet. So let's create, or let's copy the Git folder from, let's copy the folder from, what's it called? Let's copy the README folder from behind, or let's create a new one, a new README folder now. So let's call this README, another README folder, take notes. So inside of the new folder that we are in. So I've created a new README folder, and I'm also going to write into it. I will call this the main working directory. Okay, so we are writing into readme.md. So we are inside of this folder now, this one. There is no readme here now. Oh, it has been created, but it's empty. It's 0 kilobytes. So if I press enter, we've written into it, and we can confirm by using cat readme.md. I'm doing all this just to help you with remembering the commands. So you see it is now 1 kilobyte because it has contents. So let's clear. Now that we've created readme file and on our GitHub repository is still empty, now it is time for us to push. Let's do our first push. Before you push, the first thing you need to do is to stage your files. So let's stage it. But before we stage, let's do git status. So you see what git status does. So git status is telling us now that we have an untracked file called readme.md. Now, if I say git, let me clear before I do that. So if I say git add, this adds all the files so that Git can start tracking them. So if you want to start tracking, you use git add dot. So if I press enter, it's okay. If I press enter, Git is now tracking all this file. It gives us a warning because Git is trying to, it's telling you now that it's going to make some changes to the file, which is not a problem. The file still remains what it is. So if I say git status again, you can now see that Git have seen the file is a new file called readme.md. Now we can commit it, okay? So it's time for us to commit. To commit, you say git add. So commit means you are now storing the file in memory. So you say git commit, then you give it a message that is very easy to understand. So let's say this is when we created a readme file. Okay, so enter, and as you can see, the file has been committed, is now stored in memory. If you want to see what you have committed, you can use git log. So you see git log is showing us our first commit, and if it is too long, you can use git log one line to see it properly. So this is it. This is when we created a readme file. This is our first commit, and you use git log to see it. You use git log to see all your commits. Now that we've committed, the next thing we can do is now to push. So if we go back, you see that our folder here is still empty. See, I'm going to reload, which I've done now. It's empty. So for us to push this file from the local computer to our online repository on GitHub, you use the command called git push. So if I put in git push now, see what happens. Now it has pushed the file to our GitHub repository, see, to this link. Let's check it now. So let me reload again and let's see what happens. And as you can see, this is the main working directory. Remember the readme file we created, and look at the commit message we created. This is when we created a readme file. So now you can see now that our local computer has been synchronized with our GitHub account. So any changes we make from now henceforth is going to be recorded properly. So let's proceed. And that is only when we use git push. Now that we've done that, the next thing we would need to do is let's create some series of folders. So in this Git training, we want to talk about people, animals, and food. So let's create folders for all that. And the first thing we'll do is I will create the 3 folders at a time. So mkdir. So we create the first folder for people, Okay, we are creating a people folder, animal folder, and food folder. Okay, now these three folders have been created. To confirm, let's use ALX. And as you can see, we have three folders: animal, food, and people. The next thing now is I want to create files inside of those folders. So now that we have animal, let's create a file that stores the names of animals, right? So to do that, all we need to do is to say touch, then inside of animal folder, create a file called animal names. Okay, so there will be a file called animal names, and if we press enter, that file has been created. If we want to confirm, we can use ALX inside of animal to see if the file is there. So we'll see a file called animal names. So what I'm doing is ALX, yes, ALX animal. So as you can see, we have animal names there. So let me clear this and let me bring back ALX. We are still inside of the Git training directory and we have these three folders. Okay, so we've created animal names inside of animal, and now I want to write the names of some animals. So I'm going to use Vim editor to open that file. So Vim animal, then animal names. Okay, so Vim is going to open that file for us now, and now the file has been opened using Vim. And now that it is opened using Vim, let's start working on it. So I'm going to type the names of some animal. The first name is, I hope you know how to use Vim. If you don't know how to use Vim, then you might want to check my previous video. So the first animal name that we'll be entering will be, so let's say lion, goat. Let's just put 5 animal names: tiger, lizard, and bear. And now that we've done that, we can now save our file. Okay, so now the file has been saved, so we can exit out of Vim. So we can see if the name, if we can check the content using less. So I'm also doing this so that you can recall all the commands, command line commands. Okay, so let's use less to see the content, and as you can see, we have the names of 5 animals. Now let's proceed. So let's clear again, and let me bring back all the working files so that we can see the folders again. Now the next folder we have is food, so we are going to create more files. So we'll create food names and people names. Okay, so let's just do that quickly. Food. So inside of food, we want to create food names, and inside of people, we want to create people names. Those files have been created. If you want to confirm, we can check it through here too. So we see we created 3 folders. The first one, animal, and we created a file called animal names inside. Then we've created food, and we created food names file, and we also created people and people names file. We just did that using command line. This was it. So let's write into them. So let's write into food names first. Vim food and food names. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is let's make it easy for us to insert. So let's start. I'm going to say rice, bread, beans, yam, potato. So now that we are done, we can save this file, right? And now that it is saved, we can exit from Vim. So also, let's open up the people names, and let's put names of people there too. People names. So I will start with my name. Then I will add some other name, Christian. Kim, Tasha, and Donald. And now we can save and we can quit out of Vim. So now we have 3 folders, and inside of these folders they are different, they are 1 files each. So now we can proceed. But if we check our online repository, there's nothing there. If I reload, what is on our local computer is not on our online repository. So now that we've done that, the next thing for us is to send those files to the online repository. And how do we do that? We use GitHub. So let me do ls so that we can see the files. So the first thing we need to do is let's use git status. Let git status tell us the status of all our folders. And it is telling us now that we have all these folders that are not tracked, including the files that is inside of them. They are not being tracked yet. So now, how do we put them into tracking? We use githard. So if I do githard, then dot to track everything. So git, because I'm not using extension for those files, that is why you are seeing this warning, but it doesn't mean that our files are bad. So now we can do git status again to see the status, and as you can see, there's a difference. Before it was not tracked, but when I use githard here, and I now use git status to see the status, our files are currently being tracked. Now they are ready to be committed because now they have been staged. Okay, so now let's commit this file. And like I told you, I said when you are committing, always use a name that is explanatory. So git commit, then I'll say we added 3 new folders with files. Is that not what we did? Yes, that's what we did. So enter, and that has been committed. Now we can push it to our online repository. I'm not going to push now. I want you to see that it is empty. Now we can push. Let's push. I've typed the command git push, so I'm going to push now, and it's pushing everything. So let's confirm if it has been pushed. And how do we do that? We reload, and there you have it. The folders have been pushed to GitHub. So we added new folders, we added new files. I think I had a spelling error here. We added new folders with files, we added new folders with file. So you can see that we've been able to do all our changes locally just on the command line, and we've been able to push them online pretty easily, right? Now, we are working on this folder, but something is going to happen. Let's assume, one of the purpose of Git and GitHub is for collaboration. So let's assume that we have a new developer on our team and is to do some changes. So we need to do that. We need to give them our files for them to work with it, create a section of the file, a copy for them to work with without changing the main file. So if you look at here, you see master. This master is a branch, is the main branch. Okay, if you check my repository, you can see it here also. Master is my main branch. So we need to create another branch so that they can work on it. It's just like giving someone a copy of a paper. Instead of them writing on your own paper, you give them another copy to write with. You photocopy another, you made a photocopy for them to write with. So to create a branch, first of all, what is the importance of branching? Branching is for adding features. Branching is for collaborating with other developers. Branching prevents you from breaking your codes, and branching is good to fix bugs. So to see all the branch that we have, you say git branch. And as you can see, we only have the master branch, which you can see here. So let's create a branch, and we'll call this branch slave. So we'll say git branch slave. Okay, now let's see all our branches again. Git branch. So now you see we have 2 branches, master and slave. So take note, everything in this folder now is currently for master branch. But if we switch to slave branch, all the files will now become for slave. So let's do that. Let's switch. So how do you switch a branch? You say git switch, then the name of the branch you want to switch to, want to go to slave. So now it says switched to branch slave, and as you can see, let me clear, the name we have here now is slave. So all this folder now belongs to the slave branch. Okay, it's no longer master. Any change we make here is not going to affect the master branch. It will only be on the slave branch. So let's start to work. And now that we've created a slave branch, let's check all the folders we have. So inside of this slave branch, let's assume we want to create a new folder called location. So we created a new folder now called location, and inside of location, oh sorry, I created a file, so I will delete that. So to remove an empty file, so it's just rom location. Okay, that file is gone. LX, as you can see, it's not there anymore. So I want to create a new folder called location, mkdir. So let's clear so that we'll go to the top of the screen. LX, good, we have location. Let's create a file called location names now. So inside of location folder, all right. So we are creating a file called location names. Now let's open that file with Vim so that we can put names of location. So the first location is Lagos, Accra, Nairobi, Addis Ababa, and last but not the least, Pretoria. Now we can save this file. So everything we've done here is only on the slave branch. It doesn't even appear on master branch yet. Okay, so if I do LX here, you can see we have location, and on our local computer we have location now. What if we switch to master branch? Let's switch. Git branch master. Remember, we have location in our slave branch here. You see, we have a location folder. Now let's go to the master branch and let's see. Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to switch. Git switch master. So now we've switched, but even though the location is appearing here, it is not. It's just because it has to show on your computer. But inside this Git folder, Git has created some codes to tell you, to make it know that this location is not for this guy. All right, so let's go back to our Git slave. So let's do Git status just to see the status of the master branch. You see, our master branch is up to, what's it called? Yes. So let's go to Git slave. Sorry, Git branch, Git switch slave. So now we are here. Let's clear. So LX, good. So we have all this now. The next thing we need to do now is, since we've added the new files, we now need to push everything from the slave branch up here. But as you can see, we don't even have the slave branch here yet. Let me reload. We don't have the slave file here, the slave branch here yet, but it's not a problem. So the first thing first is we need to stage our file. So let's use Git status to see the status. As you can see, it says we created location, but we've not done anything about it. So now let's proceed to add everything to staging. Git add. Okay, now the next thing is to commit. So git commit, then using a descriptive name, we added what? Location folder. Now it has been committed, but it has not been pushed online. Now to push it, we'll use what we call git push. I want you to see something. So if I use git push on a branch that does not exist online yet on GitHub, let's see if it will work. And as you can see, it doesn't work because it does not exist here yet. You see, we only have master. So for us to be able to push this branch totally, we have to use a new command called git push origin. Okay, git push origin, then the name of the branch, slave. And now the branch has been created online. So if we reload, you see there's a new message here. So let's reload. And now that we've reloaded, see, we have the new branch called slave. Can you see it now? We have slave created. Now, let's do git status. So there is nothing to commit here. Now let's go back to our previous branch, the master branch. Git switch master. Git status. So you see, it says everything here is clear. There is nothing for us to change. You see, location is no longer showing because we are on master branch. Okay, but let's see if we switch to the other one, git slave, if location will be there. Git switch slave. Take note, we are currently, this is master, but let's switch to slave. And as you can see, location is back. So if we also do that online, this is food, animal, food, and people. If we switch to slave now, you see we have location. But if we go back to master, it's not there. Now, what if, now that we are done with all the changes on slave, what if we now want to have this location showing on master? That is, we want to merge. So how do you combine what you have in slave into what you have in master? First, you have to go back to master. So it's called merging. So for you to merge, you do git merge. Okay? So when you say git merge, you can put a message. Merged slave to master. And the name of the branch you want to merge. Okay? And as you can see, it has been merged to master. So if you check now, master now has location. And if we do git status, where is it? Okay, so master, yes, we've merged it and it has been pushed online automatically. So if we go back to master and reload, okay, we've not committed it. So now that we are in what's it called? We are in master. We need to push the commit. So now that you've merged, you now need to push it online. So git push, so that it would align with what you have on your local repository. So we've pushed our local file now again to the online file, and as you can see, master now has location. Everything is working fine. So basically, that is how you do your branching. Okay, that is how you do your branching. So when you're done with your branches, you can also delete a branch. You're done with it and you have no use for it anymore. It is very necessary that you can delete it. But since I don't want to delete slave, let's create a new branch called git branch, let's say worker. Okay, so now we have 3 branches. So if we check them all, we have master, we have slave, we have worker. If I want to delete worker, all I need to do is say git branch D, then the name of the branch I want to delete, worker. And as you can see, it has been deleted. If I do git branch again, you see we are only left with master and slave. Now, what if we've been working on our files, and while we were working on master, while we created the slave branch, somebody else went to make changes to master. So let's try it out, right? So let's do it. Let's assume when we worked on slave, somebody updated master. So let's go back to slave. Git branch, slave, git switch, sorry, slave. Git switch slave, or let's create a new branch just to make it work better. So let's create that worker one again. Should we? Let's continue with slave. Git switch slave. So now that we are in slave, let's edit one of the file. So we'll say vim, I'll edit the location file. So location names, yes. So I'm going to add Pretoria in South Africa. Okay. Then I will put edited in front. Edited slave. Good. I will call this edited slave. So edited slave, save. Now we can quit out of this. So slave now has been edited. Now, while we edited slave, somebody else then went ahead to edit master. So let's go back to master and edit master. So let's switch to master. Okay. Now that we're in master, let's make a changes to that same file on master. Sorry, let me quit. ls. Okay. So we're in master. Let me do git status. Okay, let me go back to slave. Let me commit the changes I made to slave. Git switch slave. Okay, so git add then git commit message updated location, git push. Okay, git push origin slave. So now I've pushed everything on slave to our online repository. So git status, everything is working fine. But while this has been done, someone else now went ahead to change something in master. So we are back to master. Sorry. Switch master. So git status, let's check the status of master. Master is okay. So while we did all that, somebody else now went ahead to make changes to the location names in master. You see that master is still the way it is. Remember the one on slave, we've added Pretoria in South Africa, edited slave. Now for master, I'm going to make an edit and say, I'm going to change Pretoria. I'll say Pretoria, but not sure. Then I will say edited master. All right. So what we have done is we've made changes to the files, the two files. We changed master, we changed the one in slave. Okay, so now assume now that these two changes have been made, you now want to merge both of them. So imagine that you want to merge everything you have in slave to master. It's going to create something called conflict. Okay, so if I say git merge, if I say git merge message, so let's say adding slave again to master, then slave, there will be a problem because we've edited master. Master has changed and slave has changed. But before we do that, we need to push. Okay, adding slave again. So let's push first before we do that, because to affect, so that the merge will be affected correctly. So git add, then git commit, let's just say edited master, git push. Good, it has been pushed now. So now let's assume that we want to merge everything we have in slave to master. Let's create a problem. Git merge, add slave to master, then is the slave branch. You see, we have a problem, and the problem now is conflict. Merge conflict in location names. It tells you where the conflict is. This is where we have conflict. Automatic merge has failed, so we have to fix the conflict, then commit the results. So how do we do that? You need to open that file. Okay, we need to open that file to correct the error or to correct the conflict. So if you see, a new branch has been created. This is not our real master branch, but it's a master merging file. So if we go into location.location names now to edit it, so GitHub wants us to choose which of the changes we want to keep. So if I open it up, can you see the changes we made? The first one we made to slave is the one we made to slave is shown here, Pretoria in Africa edited slave, and the one we had before, Pretoria but not sure edited master. If you remember, I did not type these two things inside any file. It is Git and GitHub that has done this for us. So now they are telling me to choose which one I want to keep. So which one are we going to keep? We are going to keep the one for the slave, because that is the one we want to merge. So you have to delete all this from the equal to sign up to this angle brackets, the lesser than sign. Then we delete that. Okay, so to delete on Vim is dd, sorry, to delete a line. So I'm going to delete the lines till I get to the one I want to keep. So this is the one I want to keep, Pretoria in South Africa edited slave. So now that I've edited the file, Git will be fine now. So now that we can save and we can quit out of it. So now that the error has been removed, you can try your git merge again, but that's not what you're supposed to do. I just wanted to break it. Instead, all we need to do is just to commit. So git commit, and then we say updated master with slave. Okay, so git commit, location names. Oh, there's an, I think the conflict has been resolved. So okay, we are still on master branch. So git add, so the issue we have here is we are still on the merging branch. So for us to leave the merging branch, all we need to do is say git merge, so that we quit out of merging. It will merge, but we now have to quit. So you say git merge quit. Okay, so now we are out of it. Everything is working proper now, and we can reconfirm by using Vim on this location names file. And as you can see, we have what we added, edited slave, but now it's on master. So we needed to quit out of that branch. So now we can now commit all our changes again. Sorry, so we can add, we stage it all, git add all, okay, git, then we can now do git commit, and let's say we just resolved all conflicts. Now we can push it all. So git push, and as you can see, everything has been pushed. And now that we've been working so far, we just learned that we should not be showing the name of our people. You understand? The people folder should not be seen. So how do you hide a folder, and how do you hide the name of a file? You have to create a new file called git ignore. So we were told now that we have to keep the name of our people out of the internet because they want their privacy. So we have to create a file called git ignore. So .git ignore. So you create it, it has been created. So when you are in git ignore, you use git ignore to hide files. So how do we hide files? Let's do git status. So git ignore is being shown currently, but we don't want to be pushing the subsequent changes we made to the people's folder up to the internet. So to hide a file, you have to put the name of that file or the folder name inside of git ignore. And how do we do that? We say, let's open it in vim.git ignore. So now it's open in vim. In git ignore, you can use comments. So any file here is hidden. Okay. The first file we want to hide is people. And the second one we want to hide is the file called people names. Okay. Basically, the first one is going to hide everything, but I just want you to know that you can hide files. You can even hide files with extensions. So we can say something like passwords, though we don't have it, password.txt. Maybe we should create it, password.txt. So we also want to hide this file too, so it will not be seen anymore. All right. So now we can save. So we have 3 files that we are hiding, 1 folder and 2 files. So let's save. And let's quit. So now, if we do git status, so let's create the password file that we were trying to hide. Touch password.txt. So if we do git status, as you can see, even though password is existing, let's do ALX. Password is there. Okay, see, password file is here. See, password file is shown here. To see the git ignore file, to see all the files, you use ALX and a flag -a. So this is it, git ignore and password. But if we do status, git status, git cannot see password file even though we just created it. Okay, so now it is hiding it properly. So we can go further and commit all our changes and see if password will be sent to this folder up here. So let's see if we are going to see password online here when we push it, because we're not supposed to, because git should be hiding it from us or from the world too. So now let's go ahead and do that. So we say git add to add all files. Okay, then the next step is to commit, and our message here is, what did we do? We added git ignore file. Okay, so now let's push git push, and it has been pushed, so we should have our git ignore file here now. It may not be, you may not see it, so you can see git ignore, but there is no password file. And to confirm, if we do ALX here, can you see that password is here, password.txt, but it is not online because we are using git ignore to hide it. Okay, So now that we are done, we can also delete this branch since we don't need it anymore. And how do you delete a branch? Remember, I've done that before, but let's just do it one last time. Git branch D, and we delete what? We delete the slave branch. So it says it's not fully meshed, but we don't need it anymore. So we just use the big capital letter D flag to remove it with the content. Okay, and now it has been deleted. So one final step is we've not committed it, so it may still be showing here. Okay, so one last thing we need to do is we have to do our last push. So let's commit one last time. Git add all, git status, just to see what is happening, nothing to push, but let's just do it because we've deleted something. Then we do git commit, and we say something like last update was just done by Precious. Okay, nothing to commit, by the way. Git push, everything is up to date. So ladies and gentlemen, that is all on the Git tutorial, and if you watch this properly, you should be able to do practically anything you want to do with Git and GitHub. And the new style we use here is using your token from your computer to work with Git. So thank you so much for being here with me. I'll see you in the next one. All right? Cheers.